not my lover. She's just a girl that says that I am the one. Oh, but the kid is not my son. Oh, Billie Jean is not my lover. She's just a girl that says that I am the one. Oh, well, it's not my song. Oh, yeah. Song's been stuck in my head all day, and that's good. That's fine. That's a great song to have stuck in your head. Come to find out, Michael Jackson was very likely not a child molester. He was just framed by the evil, sick, disgusting, actual pedophiles, the Jews like Rabbi Shmuley surrounding him, genuine sex criminals, and adjacent Alan Dershowitz style, pedophile apologists. They were framing him because he had criticized, saying, those evil Jewish producers, they got evil in the soul. They got dookie in their hearts. Know what they're doing is wrong. They don't care about black people. Of course, they don't. And they're the number one people convincing, if you can even call those people, convincing other human beings that black people are not worthy of respect as a baseline. And one good thing, one big thing that you can do, unironically, to defeat that sort of Zionist brainwashing is to not be face blind, is to judge individuals regardless of their skin color, whether they're white, black, brown, orange, based on their actions and not what other people say about them. You got it? All right, good. Here's a question. Can you see microwaves? No, right? Well, throw some silverware in the microwave and that situation will change very quickly. This is kind of how God works. And in this analysis, a high dose of psychedelics and an open mind is the silverware in the microwave, both allowing you to see what's always there, but also disrupting the natural process in an extremely dangerous way. Recommend that everybody sees it at least once in their life. That is God, not in that silverware in the microwave. Don't do that, please. I actually really dislike Billy Mitchell. And I've thought about this too. Here are my thoughts. Billy Mitchell prides himself on being the best at a low-skill game nobody plays anymore because it used to be popular and then fell off. So he's the best at something that used to matter but nobody cares about enough to unseat him on. Same too is he's circling around kiwi farms now to pick the corpse of a once great thing. He doesn't know who the good guys and the bad guys are. He just knows that there are people who make fun and people who get made fun of. And he aggressively shills for the people making fun. Him attacking DSP repeatedly despite him being the Teflon Roach who witnesses the downfall of all who come against him, while simultaneously simping for Keemstar, that is, Billy Mitchell is doing this. The most manufactured corporate part of the sector, who's covering for women beaters, is the perfect punctuation of this point. And I really don't like the guy. He radiates scum energy. And the whole sector is getting more and more radioactive. It's getting really bad. And I've read through the entire ick list thread, women listing their icks on the farms. And it's crazy because you see it more and more gravitating towards that. Oh, I'm defending women, I'm defending women, I'm defending women, I'm defending women. And yet they can never shut up, and yet they don't know how to read, and they go off their own, basic assumptions on everything. They're violent, and they think that this TND just coming out of nowhere is funny and venerable. In reality, like most women, though they will absolutely people watch with you, they will absolutely talk trash about certain people with you, most women base that based on actions. Apparently, a lot of men are so emotionally stunted that they've been trained to not base their judgments on people's actions, but literally their aesthetics. And that's one of the reasons why pornography is a thing and why sex sells has been a phrase in the last 40 years. It all really spawned from the free love movement, but that was originally like somewhat venerable homesteading movement that the hippies were moving towards that was then subverted from the inside by things like the Grateful Dead and clandestine LSD labs and the CIA's connections to that, and it was turned into sex, drugs, rock and roll. Like, quite literally, that actually started in the 70s, and then the exact same thing just amplified and amplified in the 80s and 90s. It's the same exact thing. Same exact thing. And with a lot of the gangster movements, you actually can see a lot of the parallels with the music industry. And, Michael Jackson is seemingly somebody who made music filled with love and introspection, and a man who is deeply, deeply in touch with his feminine side, although I suspect he actually might have been a castrati. If you don't know what a castrati is, it is an Italian practice that started after Catholicism collapsed. The state-run Catholicism collapsed in the Italian nation, where they would castrate young boys so that they would sing very, very high, very similar to the Ottoman Janissaries, and very likely, encouraged by the same exact racial group of people, snuck into both places and started subverting the actual religion of Islam and Christianity in both those places. And castratis are not legal anymore because it's horrible PR. And it wouldn't be legal under Christendom because it's considered mutilation, and that's illegal in Catholicism. But it did take place. The Italians did mutilate young boys' genitals like 200 years ago, 150 years ago, routinely, so that they would be able to sing high for their entire life. I suspect Michael Jackson was a castrati. I suspect his horribly abusive father actually did that to him. And he always just respected and cherished childhood, and the childhood that he never really got to have because he was constantly being flogged like a circus animal. And I don't think he ever was sexually abusing children. I always suspected that he might not have. And then I heard Cat Williams, and Cat Williams kind of convinced me that he was for a while. But then I look back and I'm just like, Cat Williams, though he's a genius and I love him very much, he also has fallen into the pimp archetype. And where does the pimp archetype come from, you see? That's the issue. That's the issue. Pin it all off on the scapegoats. Even, like, literally what a scapegoat is a Jewish practice of putting all your sin into a goat, setting it off into the desert. And that eventually, formed, Satan as a protector of goats, and a goat-headed, sort of with goat feet, and so, which is Pan, but I think that comes from the scapegoat. That's something I've suspected for a while. And Diddy and Epstein were supposed to be fall guys, scapegoats, even though they were coordinating a tremendous amount of things. There is all this stuff happening below them, nascent in the human spirit, that is bubbling up to the surface as these people have allowed themselves to become possessed by demons. And so we literally are ruled over by satanic pedophiles, as people would say, to get a little QAnon with it for a second, although I'd never subscribed to that psyop. It was a psyop. A psyop meant to make people think that they're learning about the real psyops, but in reality QAnon was a psyop, which is psyops is actually the big thing in the last 10, 15 years. Occupy Wall Street, or the gay movement. The gay movement, It's a psyop meant to make people think that they're actually defeating thousands of years worth of psyops, and that history was always different than it actually was. That gay people have always been omnipresent throughout history, and they haven't. Even in collapsing empires, it's just something people wouldn't probably do unless prompted and encouraged and groomed from a young age in order to do it. And that's always going to be a small subsector unless it's gone mainstream, unless the state itself implements that sort of thing. So, yeah. It's absolutely wild to me that they managed to turn women who's covering for... hold on, let me read that again. Excuse me. It's absolutely wild to me that they managed to turn women in the first world Arab countries into a perfect synthesis of sex slave and girl boss. This is something that has happened in the Arab world, the first world Arab world. They're all business owners, but they're also slaves. It's like some dark feminine horseshoe theory. They're completely subservient to man in every perceivable way, but they can sell real estate and vacation almost anywhere in the world, and they got tons of money. And at the end of the day, it's not much different than an Israeli woman or New York woman. It's all the same culture. And Florida women these days, the ones that are coming here anyways, the ones that are being activated under DeSantis and his disgusting golem governance. Yeah. It's all the same culture that comes out of Persia. Funny enough, you trace this back to ancient Persia. The best parts of the Middle East went to North Africa and/or became Christians. That's essentially what I suppose. So the Boomer generation ended in 1964, and there is so much significance in that date. The Vatican was couped and turned into a black market and human trafficking network around then. That's when the Church of Wicca started grooming autistic females. That's why the Church of Satan started turning young men. That's when and why the Church of Satan started turning young men into psychopaths to kind of hit both sides and then divide people up through that process. Women hate men, men hate women, destroy society, collapse the birth rate. A lot of this happened in 1965, right after Vatican II. So um, they hit the spiritual but not religious part. They hit ex-Protestants with Satanism to try and get them to go like, oh, Satan's the guy with a lot of power, right? He's like really powerful, right? And then they hit Catholics from like their institutional structure that they're too loyal to. You know, as Sean Martin, a fellow Catholic, says, like some of these people were too loyal to the church to be willing to call out genuine crimes against humanity and children that were taking place. Oh, something funny. I think the Trump administration is really sick of Netanyahu, who is currently sick of food poisoning from eating like nasty, rotten food. Maybe it was the similar situation to something that happened to Obama, and maybe that's why Obama's chef got drowned in the lake. I don't know. I don't care. But I hope Netanyahu dies very, very soon. And Trump is looking to split this relationship off. You know how he is. And this is getting like ridiculous. Ridiculous. You need to, and Netanyahu's getting old and he knows this. And he also has lots and lots of criminal trials, different criminal trials intersecting. So Mike Huckabee is absolutely and utterly pissed. He is so pissed at them bombing the Holy Family Church in Gaza. He is so pissed at them bombing a predominantly Christian town. He is so pissed. And that is a real Christian Zionist. Funny enough, he looks a lot like my dad. A little bit more Arkansas. My dad is from the Midwest, but Indiana, Ohio region. But they look very, very similar. And it's interesting that if you're losing that particular contingent, the Arkansas Protestant, you know, if you're losing that, you're done. You're cooked. You're completely and utterly cooked. People like Mike Pompeo are dropping like flies. And he's, you know, way younger than he should be for this, but he noticed that he was probably an up-and-comer Zionist when people 20 years older than were praising him for how smart he was, you know? And now he's stuck in a corner. I've literally watched like half of his base abandon him recently. It's just funny because like Kiwi Farms itself is at like 30 to 50% capacity of what I remember. You know, 150, 200 reactions on a post in 3 days and stuff like that. And it didn't have to be hyper highlighted. Those highlighted ones would get like 600, 700 sometimes. Now it's like, really, it's like, and I hate to say this, but it's true. Like, what is there to do anymore? You know, a lot of we have not prioritized mental illness on the website for a while. At least they haven't prioritized mental illness on the website for a while. And observation, taking notes, laughing along to the funny parts, crying along to the tragedies, like when Kay's son lost their dog. You know, that's sad. We cried with them. We laughed with them and at them. And that's no longer, Kay's cooking is no longer a thought on the brain of Slobbermutt, right? It's just politics, politics, politics. He wants to get an interview with Asmongold. It's very, very funny. That's very, very funny. He wants to get an interview with Asmongold specifically because Asmongold is a pro-Israeli apologist. That's it. And he doesn't realize, he's too stupid to realize, and I think one of his reasons why he's so stupid is because most of his brain is filled with coding, but like he genuinely has a very bad memory. So like his IQ might be much lower than I thought. I thought his IQ was around 105. His IQ might be 95. His IQ might be 90 to 95. And it might have lowered in the last couple of years. I don't know if people are surrounding him, sycophants, blowing smoke up his ass all the time. But at this point, I don't ever want to go back there. I don't care if he grovels. I'm not going back there. Place sucks. Place sucks. You know, I am bored on the website these days. It's like one thing a week, if that. Sometimes when it rains, it pours. But like it's fallen off. The good people, they're tired of being associated, getting dragged. The good people that work hard, they're tired of being dragged. I'm sure Sprayed Header isn't very happy with the way that things are going and how much Josh has made things about himself. It's not the Internet Preservation Society. It's the Josh Moon Preservation Society. He wants to do stuff with his life. He's got a life, and F you pay me. Like, okay, buddy. You think that's really what leadership is about? Prepare to lose it. Prepare to lose your leadership, because it's coming. And I hope Matthew Harden has trouble finding work later on in his life, because screw that guy. Like, really, screw that guy. I always wondered when the practice of castrati started in Italy, and at this point, I've done enough research on Catholicism to know it absolutely did not come out of Roman Catholicism. I'm going to wage a hypothetical guess that it started in the most Athenian circles of the pagan Roman Empire. And I think being hyper-Roman is actually Portugal's big failing. Not exclusive to ancient Italy, and that practice would be emulated by the Ottomans in their creation of eunuch janissaries. But when it came back into play under monarchist Italy before being banned by the Republic of Italy, just an aside, the most pro-monarchist areas of Italy are also the hubs for the modern mafia, with almost perfect translation if you look on the charts. It's very fascinating. But back to the castrati. Savoy was formed by the last anti-pope, Amadeus VIII, and Savoy would go on to form Sardinia-Piedmont, from which Garibaldi would form the Italian nation. I've said this before. I hope it's logged in your head because this is very important. The last anti-pope formed before and then they got rid of the need for anti-popes because they're summoning forth nation states in an era of nations. In this foundation was formed anti-papal sentiment, the same as in the concrete foundation of the Freemasons, who would kill John Paul I in 33 days and turn the Vatican into a child sex trafficking hub and black market money laundering operation after our lovely CIA, not satanic at all, pay no attention to Michael Aquino and the Church of Set, would go ham on them during Operation Gladio in the years of lead in Naples. Look it up if you haven't. I appreciate anybody who has. So, it's not like the foundation of child castration akin to transgender surgery lies within the hearts of the Italian people. Absolutely not. But the ones that I criticize, but the ones we see rising up to the highest ranks of power today, are the products of the people that protected the pagan Roman Renaissance and slowly turned 3/4 of Italy into a rolling hood rat slum punctuated by little hubs of pretentious pedophile elite. DeSantis apparently loved taking trips to Thailand. Did you know that? DeSantis loved taking trips to Thailand. As a man, that is that is big. That is a red flag the size of some of those gigantic American flags they have to hoist up on a crane. That is a huge red flag. And this is according to his wife, Casey. And when he went to Israel, as soon as he became governor, he became their most loyal golem. Both countries are known for child sex trafficking. Both countries. I really dislike the way that Florida's going, but as I said, bring all your evil people here. At least it'll make the rest of the country better. Yeah, call it a Messiah complex, call it a martyr. Whatever, dude. Whatever, as long as the other people aren't suffering. Bring it all here. We'll pool all of the evil together, and hopefully they'll shoot each other like that Miami Jew shot those Zionist Arab Israelis down in Miami. You know, hopefully that's the ultimate consequence of this. My fellow white man, I address you now. Why do you own a poorly trained pit bull whose ears and tail have been mutilated? Why do you crank your subwoofer up to max? Were you in the military? You don't have to emulate everybody you met in high school 2 Electric Boogaloo, my friend. Oh, and I'm pretty sure where the Hollywood crypto Jew patina of Harlan Williams comes from. He isn't Jewish at all. But, a lot like me, his lawyer father likely set him up as a Christian Zionist from a young age, which is what I was set up to before there's a combination of things, but I chose not to be one. Not because, not because I hated Jews in any way, shape, or form, or hated Israel, mostly because of Operation Protective Edge in 2014, which killed a ton of innocent people that Obama used our Air Force to do. It was 14.5 thousand people, 86% of which were civilians. It's very similar numbers to any time Israel wages a war on anybody, as they kill a vast majority of civilians and say, alrighty, we did the job. there was a bad guy in there, and sometimes there's just straight up no bad guy in there, but they want to blow it up anyways. This is easy for them to do in the process of blowing up one of their targets, and so they go ham in order to terrorize people because they're terrorists. They've always been terrorists. The foundation of Israel is terrorism. And you never do deals with terrorists. You do not negotiate with terrorists. You eliminate them. That is how you deal with terrorists. And one way of eliminating Israel is just by cutting off their defensive weapons, cutting off their offensive weapons, and dusting your hands and going, not my problem. I am an Indo-European white man. I am not Semitic. I don't have to worry about Semitic problems. These people can continue to kill each other like they've done for 8,000 years. I don't care. I don't care. It's that simple. You know, Sam is getting dragged by like hordes of people who don't normally watch his content. And I think that's great. I think he is 100% used to that. In fact, I bet that gives a bunch of steel in his spine. Because legitimately, this is what you would come to expect when you attack these horrifically evil principles as people trying to millhouse their way into memeticism. And it's just like, you can't force a meme. That's not what makes a meme. A meme is something that everybody consents to automatically, psychologically. It's almost archetypal. You cannot force a meme. You will just actually end up causing a 180 backfire effect. When people go, the thoughts that you have been so forced that they're annoying, and screw you. So, good job, Sam. God bless you, Sam. Although you shouldn't have slapped Harlan. That was wrong. Battery is never justified in an offensive sense. Whether somebody insults you, doesn't matter. It's never justified. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Back to Harlan anyways. Back when Zionism was just support for Israel and not the military project of Greater Israel, that has shed a lot of the skin people were clinging on to. You know, it's very important to note that. I am named Nathaniel, not Nathaniel, but Nathaniel, I-E-L, for a reason. Harland was named Harland for a reason. But neither of us are ethnically or religiously Jewish. But the culture Ben Shapiro talked about back in the day was real. It was real. It's dying now. People are peeling the scales from their eyes, and they're noticing things. Sleeve tattoos are the most viscerally repulsive thing. Every once in a while, they can look good. Joe Rogan has very nice sleeves. But there's a type of sleeve that absolutely beat women get sometimes that are just solid black. Not only does that like damage your skin and prevent you from, it literally prevents your skin from getting damaged by the sun by damaging it so much and increases your chance of skin cancer. It also looks hideous. I don't think there's anything that anybody can do to their body that's more hideous than just pure black sleeves. On both sides, or just one side. But both sides is definitely worse, for sure. Because one side you could at least play it off as eccentric, and then you could like wear like split white and black stuff. You know, that could work. It's potential. You'd have to do it all the time, but you could be like a harlequin. Both black sleeves, especially on a woman, you might as well just kill yourself. Like there's nothing that you can do at that point. And what are you gonna do? Just irradiate all the skin off your arms to get rid of it, and then be pink forever? Sorry, you screwed up. It's like you wiped your ass with that, suicide bush leaf. You screwed up. Don't screw up. It piques my disgust sensitivity a lot. So much so it's utterly disgusting and repulsive. I hate it so much. However, you shouldn't get into the habit of having all the things you hate bouncing around in your mind constantly. This is a thought that I had when I was reading the ick thread. Because I started to list all the things that I disliked in men and women too, and see how they lined up, and myself abide by like 9. There's certain subjective women say that they don't like long hair on men. Perfectly reasonable. You do you. You go for that. Some women like long hair. And in fact, if I got a woman that I really, really like, and she really, really likes me, and she says, "Hey, I would like you more if you cut your hair," done, baby, done. You know what I'm saying? I'm not that vain, but I also know that for the Celts in Celtic culture, The longer your hair, the better. It shows that you have a higher IQ, and it shows that you're more peaceful. You're not getting into bar fights all the time and having your hair ripped out. It is a weakness, but the ability to showcase a weakness, especially if it comes from you, and still walk with its stride, that is actually a big thing. Whereas Germans just suppress, unfortunately. No matter how justifiable the hatred is, it unironically slowly poisons you to dwell on it in an esoteric sense. Eso as an inside, exo as an outside. A lot of people confuse the two. They think that religions are esoteric. Religions are exoteric. Spirituality is esoteric. And the emotions that you subjectively feel are, or objectively, if you want to argue the objective-subjective split mind-body problem sort of thing, the emotions that you feel are esoteric. The way that you interact with the world and the words that you say and the math that you do is exoteric. Religions and their legalism is exoteric. Mysticism in religions is, like the Sufis, is and monastics is esoteric. Get it? Got it. Good. In an esoteric sense, there are demons flying around everywhere. In some places, it's so thick, they block out the sun. But if you give these demons no place to land in your soul, to shield yourself from their influence, that's how to maintain your sanity and spiritual purity regardless of your environment. You can do it. You really can. There's nothing that people can force into you that prevents you from going inside and canceling it out. Although sometimes it's hard for you, like if that's pushed to a certain point, it's hard to pull you back out of it afterwards. So what you do is you filter the hatred and you absorb the love. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Filter the hatred, absorb the love. And here's a bit of filtration some of you need to hear. The worst people in society both gravitate towards aggressive driving because their personality defect can't help but manifest itself in public spaces on the road, but also because regular people enter a space occupied predominantly by psychopaths, and you are who you put yourself around. Slowly, these psychopaths are eroding laws that prevent general molestation. On the left, it's visual. On the right, it tends to be more audible. But there are people living on a razor's edge of discomforting lack of self-control. Their goal in implementing institutional molestation as a standard takes place across the board and is the mechanism by which trauma cycles replicate like viruses. It's bucket crabs. And you have to remember that you are a man with free will, or a woman, made in the image of God. Let it have no power over you. You know, I think back in the day, philosophers were a lot like podcasters are now, you know? Most of them weren't good and were propped up by the political forces of their time. But there were men and women who slowly bent the arc of history closer towards justice by thanklessly plodding along, mostly being appreciated after their death. But if it's worth it, you'll do it. You won't just lubricate your way towards power by liquidating everything in arm's reach when it becomes convenient, regardless of its path and purpose. You'll suffer because it is noble to suffer. Straight up. All right, y'all. Hope that's a good episode. Hope y'all enjoy it. Stay cool. It's so hot right now. Stay cool. Cheers.